Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Backstage Pass. My name is Dean Butcher, host of the show, and it's my honor today to sit down and chat with a hilarious guy. He's been on our cruises for many, many years. He's been on television, he's been in film, and he also was the winner of Last Comic Standing about a decade ago. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together and welcome to the stage comedian Alonzo Bodden.
Hey, Dean Butcher.
How are you?
What's up, man?
What's going on?
Not much. I can dance.
You can dance?
I can samba now, if that's what they call it.
Well, let's talk about that
What
for a
the
minute,
kids
because
are doing.
you were nervous, you were worried about it, you were concerned.
I was. I knew it would be bad, and it was. But no, my instructor, Lauren, she was phenomenal. So she walked me through it, and yeah, we'll find out how this goes.
Have you found your right foot?
Yeah, she showed me how to cover. She's like, listen, when you screw up, just do this and keep moving. And there was a lot of that.
Are there a lot of hands? Are you?
There's some of this. Got some of that going on. There's moves, man. This is going to be,
Do that first move again.
Good. Right? Grace knows. Grace had a little, see? We got this.
You're twerking it.
No, it's not twerking. See how you took that too far? See how I gave you a little, you took it too far? Now it's weird for everybody. No twerking.
You're working on a new project, Catch a Car Guy.
Yeah, it's in the very preliminary stages. You know, TV shows, it's funny because people always say, man, you should do a TV show. And it's not like I'm turning them down, you know? But the way it works, somebody pitches an idea to a studio or a network, and then they're like, oh, that's a good idea. Then you have to talk them into doing a pilot, like they have to finance a pilot. Mm-hmm. Then you shoot the pilot, then they look at it, then the executives look at it, everyone puts in their opinion, their input. Hopefully they do that. Sometimes they're just like, nah, it's not gonna work. And then you might reshoot the pilot, or then, hopefully green light it and we do some shows. So this is a spin-off of a show called Catch a Contractor, which is done by my friend Adam Carolla. He's a great guy. And he used to be a contractor. So as you all know, when you hire contractors, you don't know what they're doing, So he catches them when they charge you like $10,000 to redo your kitchen.
Okay.
And it was really $85 worth of work. So it's the same theory with cars. Like, hopefully we catch car mechanics trying to rip you off, or car salesmen. And then I go in and I challenge them and make fun of them for doing it. Like, you charge how much for what, So hopefully it goes. It will be on Spike TV.
Is it scripted?
No. I am better unscripted.
Okay.
I am a horrible actor.
But you've done some film.
I play a bouncer. It's always a stretch. Really, I do. I play bouncers to the point every now and then they send me on these crazy auditions. The craziest one, they wanted me to be the manager of a taco joint on a Nickelodeon kids show, right? So I told my agent, I said, look, just stop pretending. That's not gonna happen, and then sometimes they send me out for big roles, which is great, except that I'm going up against like real actors, like when I walk into the casting room and I see and I recognize them, and I'm like, okay, you've done this before, and it makes sense, So I told my agent, I said, look, just when they want bouncer, when they want thug number 6, give me a call. So there was a show called Neighbors on ABC.
Okay.
As a sitcom, and they had a role for bouncer, and he sent me in, and I went, I did the audition, and he called me back before I got home, driving home. He called me back laughing. He said, you nailed it. They already made an offer. I said, see, man, I got that. But acting is a talent. You know what you learn about acting from doing it? You learn what good actors do. And I always tell my agent, find out how bad actors get work, and I'll go for that.
Do you not take classes?
No, not really. It's difficult for me to take class because I travel so much.
Right.
And in an acting class, what they do is they'll give you a scene and you have a partner and you rehearse and you do the scene and then they critique it and so on. But it was unfair for partners because I would be traveling so much I couldn't devote time to rehearsal. Right. Then it became a thing of me doing monologues, and I was like, well, I kind of do those every night,
Right.
So now I'm in class for voiceover. I'm trying to learn to do voice acting and try to get some work there. But getting back to the original question, the unscripted stuff like this show, I'm really good at that, where I'm just in a situation, something happens, and I, make fun of it. You may have heard me do that.
When you're writing comedy, the premise of this question is really about memory, because if you get a script that is not your own, you've not written it, is that difficult for you to remember, like an actor would remember, or is it this sort of the same sort of memory thought process?
It's more difficult to remember someone else's words than mine. And different writers and producers. And so, when you watch TV, when you see all those credits, and it's like executive producer, blah, most of those are writers. They call them producers because it has to do with pay scale and what they do, but most of them are writers. Some are locked into their words, and they want you to do it exactly the way they wrote it, and then others are cool with you, tweaking it and throwing in your own thing now and then. So it depends on who you work with. But it can be difficult to remember, and then you have to remember what the other person's saying.
What about wearing an earpiece? Because
no.
Robert Downey Jr. and I believe Marlon Brando they wear in-earpieces and they'll be fed the lines.
Sometimes they do. When I did Scary Movie 4 with Leslie Nielsen.
Yeah.
And they had, at the time, Leslie Nielsen was 80 years old.
Wow.
So they had to feed him his lines one at a time. And the amazing thing was they would give him a line and then he'd do it funny. They'd say like, okay, you have to say, stop where you are and walk this way. And then he would say the same thing in a funny manner. And that's a talent. It's a talent and it's a gift that some people have.
Well, I think you got it.
I appreciate that. And I try. I think if I had devoted myself more to acting, I may have been able to do it. Like, it's funny because I have friends, we kind of started out together. And two of them in particular are big movie stars now. Ken Jeong.
Oh, really?
Ken Jeong from the Hangover movies and all of that. He used to do stand-up. Dr. Ken. He's actually a doctor. He literally is a doctor who used to do stand-up and acting at night, and it took off for him. And Craig Robinson, who right now he's in what is it called? Hot Tub Time Machine Part 2. He did a lot of those Judd Apatow movies.
Yeah.
But we used to do stand-up together. But where I was on the road every week and pursuing it, they stayed in town and they worked on acting. And you never know in this business. You never know what's going to happen. I did open mics with Jamie Kennedy, and then he came in one day and said, hey, I got this scary movie role. And that was the last we saw him. Boom, movies.
Well, stick around. You're watching Backstage Pass. We'll be right back with comedian Alonzo Bodden. The signature jazz cruise on Seabourn is a beyond perfect way to spend 10 luxurious days in the Mediterranean, visiting the most famous ports of call in Europe, and 10 incredible nights of the most amazing jazz in the world. Join us as we visit Rome, Positano, Elba, Portofino, Cannes, Barcelona, Menorca, and Monte Carlo, and thrill to the music of Monty Alexander, Jeff Hamilton Trio, Joe Lovano, Marcus Miller, Houston Person, John Pizzarelli Quartet, Diane Reeves, and our Barcelona show featuring Eliane Elias and Maraca. The signature jazz cruise on Seabourn, the most luxurious jazz cruise in the world. Welcome back to Backstage Pass. You're here with Alonzo Bodden. When you're an up-and-coming comic, bombing, is that... I hear a lot of comics say that they would not be where they are if they didn't bomb, and they actually enjoyed bombing and not getting laughs and sort of failing as a comic.
You don't enjoy it when it happens, in the moment, but it's absolutely part of the job. You bomb, and because you learn from it. You learn what doesn't work, and hopefully you take the risk again. The worst bombing I ever did was, it was, my brother loves this story because it was in the neighborhood where we grew up, literally less than a mile from my house. There was a club called Manhattan Proper.
Where did you grow up?
In Queens. I grew up in Queens in New York City. And this was in 1994. So this is when Def Jam was the biggest thing in comedy, right? Okay. And all black comics were doing hardcore, from the hood, Def Jam comedy. Well, I was doing a clean set because I was going to be on the Apollo Comedy Hour, which was on syndicated TV, so you couldn't curse, right? Uh-huh. So, and I'm new. I'd only been doing comedy. I'd been doing it less than 2 years, so I had no business being on this TV show anyway.
Before you go any further, what is considered new and what is considered old? Like, how many years are you no longer new?
The best description was given to me by a comic. They said, well, it's like going to college. So for the first 4 years, you're in school. You're not supposed to get paid. Now, I did. I got my first paying gig 6 weeks after my first day on stage. So my career, I had like, it jumped, then it plateaued, then it jumped again, then it plateaued. Okay. I'm in a plateau right now, looking for a jump. So anyway, so I have this gig, and I go to this club, and I started in LA, you know, so I'm in New York. New York comics are really cool. They take me to this club to run my set, because when you're going to go on TV, you do the set. TV is usually 4 minutes. You do it in clubs as a rehearsal to get on TV. I went up there. They didn't just boo me off the stage. They booed me out of the building onto the sidewalk. They were like, get his ass out of boo, you know. And you go out there and you're like, man, that hurt, you know. But I got to go on the Apollo. But when I went to do it on the Apollo, like a couple of days later, they said, listen, you got 30 seconds. They said, if they ain't laughing in 30 seconds, they're gonna boo you. And I went out there and my first joke killed, and I don't even remember the rest of the set. I just had them at the Apollo. But yeah, bombing is part of it. Even now I won't bomb on a set, but sometimes I'll do a joke and it'll just sit there flat and you'll get nothing. And you're like, wow, I thought it was funny. And we love watching our friends bomb, you know, or watching new comics. Like when you see a new comic bombing, you'll see the veterans in the back of the room, and we're like, where's the light? The cue we get when we're on stage is there's usually a red light. So if you're doing 10 minutes, at 8 minutes, the red light comes on, you know you got 2 minutes left. When you're bombing, time goes slow. You're like, where's the light? Where's the light? And we'll be like, don't light him. Let him go. Let him go. See what happens. Yeah, we love that.
When was the last time you bombed?
I can't remember the last time a set bombed. I'm trying to think the last joke that I tried to make work that didn't work. I'd have to think about it. It was something. It was a political joke that just fell flat. It was after the midterm elections. Okay. But I couldn't remember specifically because now what happens, sometimes something's not funny and I'll come back to it later.
That was going to be my next question.
Yeah.
Do you then revisit it and rework it?
Sometimes. And then other times it's like, yeah, that just ain't going to work. You know, so.
And you still think it's funny though?
Yeah, so it might be funny to me.
Right.
You know? That's why people ask, how do I know what to talk about? If something strikes me as funny, that's when I talk about it. I'll tell you the jokes that are really difficult right now, the police shootings. Right. You know, because it's a difficult topic, but as a comic, we have to tackle it.
Right.
So you have to find that line of how can I make this funny. You know, people are going to squirm in their seats, like just when I said it, people squirm, and we're okay with that. We love the squirm. The reaction is what counts. You want them to laugh, but sometimes if they groan or if they're like, ew, you're like, that's good, I got you.
What about hecklers? You like them?
You know, I don't like them. I can handle them. My thing with hecklers, I tell them, like, look, I do this every day.
Right.
This is all so if you want to challenge me, when you go home, your friends are going to have a new name that they're going to call you. I'm going to hurt your feelings, you know, I make fun of them. I win.
Does it ever get personal? I mean, look at the Michael Richards.
No, that's what, you know, with Michael Richards, that's like, as comics, we're like, see, that's why we know he's not a comic. And to be honest, that's why we knew he was a racist, because I would never go there. You know, like, I've been heckled by people, but I'm never going to say, hey, you know, you Puerto Rican this or you Jewish that or whatever. Like, you just don't do that unless it's in you, you know. But I'll make fun of you, but it won't be personal. And even when they make you mad, you can never let them know.
And do you always know where they are? And I mean, because you can't see them, right?
It's a voice out there.
Right.
But, you know, it's part of the job. But
what's the worst experience?
The worst heckling experience? It was a show in South Central, and this guy was heckling me with prison slang. And so I didn't know what he was talking about because he was like a convict. So he's yelling at me like we're on the yard, and I'm like, I don't know yard slang. Fortunately, you know, knock wood, I don't know yard slang. I don't know what they be saying on the yard, but that one was bad. But you know who really helped me with that? Cedric the Entertainer.
Really?
Yeah. Cedric because early in my career.
Helped you with yard slang?
Yeah. when early in my career, I'm more what they call mainstream comic versus being a black comic, or which I hate that term, but that's how they do it. You know, urban comic. So I'm more mainstream. So when I did the hardcore rooms, it was hard for me because I was new and I was nervous. And Sid told me, he said, look, man, you keep doing what you do. He said, they wish they could do what you're doing.
Right.
You know, so you keep doing it. And when you're new, that kind of boost from somebody who's made it is a big confidence builder. So, yeah, I remember those days.
Hey, when we come back right after the break, we're going to find out exactly who Alonzo looks at as a god in the comedy world. But right now, stick around. We'll be back in just a few minutes with Backstage Pass and Alonzo Bodden.
Welcome to the Gospel Music Cruise, the most amazing and inspirational cruise to ever hit the high seas, featuring the top names in gospel music. Names like Kirk Franklin, Yolanda Adams, Fred Hammond, Pastor Shirley Caesar, Ty Tribbett, Pastor Marvin Sapp, Take Six, along with co-hosts yours truly, Kirk Whalum and Regina Bell. To accompany this incredible lineup of artists, comedian Alonzo Bodden and the ultimate dance band DW3 will join the bill along with some truly amazing musicians and more. This week-long praise party sails the Caribbean from Fort Lauderdale, visiting ports of call Grand Turk and Turks and Caicos, San Juan, Puerto Rico, Tortola in the British Virgin Islands, and Holland America's own private island of Half Moon Cay. The cruise captures the essence of the gospel world, as it's not just about the music, but the overall experience. During the days and nights when you're not enjoying the lush and tropical ports of call, we have a ton of events, from celebrity-hosted cooking demonstrations, music panels, and inspiring seminars with our gospel music artists. Artist-hosted basketball games, game shows, theme nights, and much, much more all week long. The Gospel Music Cruise sets sail March 6 through 13, 2016, on one of Holland America's most luxurious ships, the MS Eurodam, which features all of the 5-star accommodations and amenities that a ship has to offer. Visit thegospelmusiccruise.com and book now, as every aspect of this amazing event, from its inception to the actual cruise, will be simply that, amazing.
Welcome back to Backstage Pass. We're here with Alonzo Bodden. Number one all-time comic.
Wow, that is a tough one. Personally, to me, Cosby. Bill Cosby, been doing it for 50 years, still comes up with new material. It's unbelievable. In spite of all his troubles and all the sex scandal and all of that, just talking about being a comic, I think Cosby's my favorite, best of all time.
Have you met him?
Yeah, I met him once, and it was very cool. Very cool. And I think Dave Chappelle is the most naturally funny person I've ever met.
Yeah.
Like, effortlessly, just, Dave walks out funny. You know, he just, yeah, Dave's amazing.
Now, let's touch base on Cosby real quick, because it's an interesting thing. You say there are topics that are topical and subjective and difficult to talk about, but you have to tackle them.
Yeah.
Right? So now, something that is so sensitive happens to a comic.
Right.
How does he tackle it?
Well, he did. He was doing a show, and this woman got up, and he said, "Where are you going?" And she said, "I'm going to get a drink." And he said, "You might want to be careful drinking around me." And some people didn't like the fact he made the joke, but he did. The Cosby thing is very weird. I've joked about it a little.
I was going to ask, have you touched base on it?
I have a joke that I do about it, a couple of jokes I do about it. But it's very weird because he's such a hero and an icon, but he's still a person, and it's still a situation.
Sure.
So, yeah, we talk about it. And the guy who Hannibal Buress, the guy who did the first joke, I know Hannibal. Hannibal's a great comic. I don't think there was any malice involved. Like, I don't think he knew that it was going to start this snowball effect.
Crazy.
Yeah, it really is.
But you're a huge fan of Richard Pryor.
Pryor was great. Pryor, somebody, I don't remember who, but some comic said that Richard Pryor is the most honest comic there's ever been. And he really was. There was nothing in his life he wouldn't talk about. That was amazing. And George Carlin And see, for me, because I like to do topical political stuff, he's at the top of my food chain. Like Carlin was the best at that. The highest compliment I ever got, Playboy magazine did an article, and they called me one of the spawn of Carlin. And I loved that. That was a great, that was a great compliment.
Rightly so.
And I did get to, I got to open for him once.
Oh, really?
Really cool, yeah.
You guys get along?
Yeah, he was cool. This past summer, I got to work with Don Rickles. Like getting to work with the legends. What's it like meeting? When you get to work with the masters, that's what I call those guys. They're legendary. If they think you're funny, it just feels good. You know, like they told me, this Just for Laughs is a big comedy festival in Canada, and they do these big shows called the galas, and they tape them. It's a big TV special. So Don Rickles was headlining one, and he picked the comics to be on his, and he picked me. So it's like Don Rickles personally picked you to be on his show, and then I did my set, and it was great. But the best thing was backstage in the green room. He was insulting me. He was sitting there making fun of me. And when Don Rickles is making fun of you, that's the highest honor you can get. And he just tore me up and down. Alonzo, that's good. You picked a white man's name. Keep you out of jail. Anyway, you love that. You love that.
Do you challenge him back?
No, you shut up and take it. Don Rickles, are you going to insult Don Rickles? No, you're actually laughing so hard you can't say anything.
So when you walk on the set of, was it Scary Movie that Nielsen was in? When you walk on the set of that, you know that he's going to be there, you've got a scene with him. Are you nervous?
Not really.
Because you're acting too. This is not like you're doing your set.
Leslie Nielsen was cool, and the funny thing was, it was like, take 4, take 5, take 12. And I'm like, okay, I must be doing something wrong because it can't be Leslie Nielsen, right? And then we got to about take 14, and the directors started laughing. And he said that was the one. And he's worked with, I can't remember their names, but the guys who did all the Airplane and all those movies. He said when they laugh, that's the one they like. So he'd worked with them and he knew it. So we were fine. That was great. The only intimidating person I worked with was Steve Martin. Very intimidating. What happened, it was a movie called Bringing Down the House.
Right.
And believe it or not, I was playing security. I know, it's hard to believe.
Queen Latifah was in there?
Yeah, Queen Latifah and Steve Martin. So I'm security at, the scene is it's a party at Steve Martin's house. I'm a friend of Queen Latifah, and I'm not letting Steve Martin into his own backyard. So Steve Martin comes up with the director, and I'm standing there with an extra, right? And the extra's like, wow, it's Steve Martin. And Steve just went, I'm acting. And I was like, ooh, don't say anything to Steve Martin. Like, you know, it was intimidating when he said that. So later on, I was talking to one of his assistants, and she said, you know, well, he likes comics. If you're a comic, you know, you can talk to him. So I go over and I talk to him, and I said, you know, Steve, like, you were the best. You were at the very top, and you walked away. I said, do you ever miss it? And he's like, you know, I do things. I host. I tell jokes now and then. I was like, really? Like, what do you host? And he looked at me and said, the Oscars. And I looked right back at him. I said, who books that? And he fell out. He just cracked up, and we were cool. So we were able to joke a little after that. Yeah.
What's your favorite set? Like, sometimes I ask a musician, is there a song that you wish you had have played on, or that you had have written? Is there a set that you wish you had have told or created?
Oh, you hear a bunch of jokes.
Like, is there something that you wish is your favorite that you wish? Damn, I wish I had.
There's one I can't say on here, but there was a Chris Rock routine, and the first time I heard Chris say it, and this was long before he did it on TV, I was like, man, what a thought. And I'll have to edit it, and it's not going to be funny edited, but I have to edit for TV. He said, there's a civil war going on. So on one side, there's N-words, and on the other side, there's black people. And he said, anything white people hate about N-words, black people really hate about. And I just heard him say that, and I was like, oh, man, genius. Like, because I knew just with that premise, you could go so far, and there's so many things that could come out of it. So sometimes you hear something like that, and you're just like, man, why didn't I think of it? I just recently worked with a guy, we were in Bermuda, right? And he said, you know, he said that there's a big controversy about Idris Elba playing James Bond. And people are like, I don't know if a black guy could play James Bond. He said, really? you don't know if a black person with a vaguely British accent can drive fast on crazy roads? Come to Bermuda. And it was like, man, what a great joke. Like that, I'm paraphrasing, but the way he said it, I was like, what a great joke. So yeah, every now and then you hear something and you're like, man, I wish I thought of that.
Other than comics, and we've got to wrap this up, but other than comics, what does make you laugh? Like, is it?
Sometimes it's dumb situations. It's usually dumb things. Or awkward,
I mean, I've seen,
unusual.
For the audience's sake, but I mean, I've seen some of the emails that, you sent, or Mike was involved in, whatever, we go back and forth, and some of the stuff that, we've had the pleasure of talking
horribly
about,
inappropriate things are always funny, because comics, we don't have, there's no, like, ooh, you shouldn't have said that.
Right.
So anything
So
that's horribly
situations.
inappropriate, we joke about. Or I'll tell you one of the funniest things I saw, and it was just so wrong, but it was hilarious. There was a guy on a walker, and he's going down the sidewalk on a walker, and a guy came out of a building on one of those three-wheel electric carts, and the cart clipped the walker, and I was like, man, handicap on handicap crime. And the reason it was so funny, because we're like at an outdoor patio, and it happened across the street, and I was the only one who saw it. The people with me didn't see it, and I'm laughing so hard, and they look, and they just see a guy at a walker laying on the ground, and they're like, Alonzo, you're horrible. I'm like, if you'd have seen it happen, it was you couldn't have set it up. It was timed perfectly. His wheel just took the walker out, and the guy just boom. And I'm like, oh man, that was worth $1 million.
So if you write a movie, that scene's...
Yeah, you got to clip a walker with an electric cart. That was great.
Well, hey man, actually before we go, I do want to ask you. You've been on the cruises now since, I think we said 06, maybe 07?
I think 06.
How did you, for the audience's sake, how did you become involved?
Okay, and I'm going to try to tell this story quickly, but it's a bit. There was a guy named Ronnie Gutierrez, a percussionist, who used to be on the ship. And Ronnie and I were really good friends, and he was playing with Warren Hill, who was hosting back then. And Warren said, we need a comic for this cruise. And Ronnie said, well, what about Alonzo Bodden? And Warren said, do you know him? And Ronnie was like, yeah. And Ronnie told me what happened. He said he pulled out his phone, and Warren was like, oh, you really know him? And he was like, yeah. So he called me up. We got it set up. I came on to the cruise, and I was doing my first show, and I started making fun of Warren's mullet. And then I made fun of Warren Hill. I made fun of Everett Harp. I made fun of a couple of other musicians. And they were all like, wow, you know us? And I'm like, well, I didn't know who you were. I know your music, but I had to see who they were. So the next morning, Michael Lazaroff calls me down, and I'm like, oh man, I'm in trouble. Like I made fun of the musicians. They're upset, blah, blah, blah. And I go in the office, and Michael said, I had one complaint last night. Peter White asked why you didn't make fun of him. And the next show I did, the first 20 minutes were on Peter White. And after that, Michael said, whenever we sail, you're sailing with us. And I've been
Which
his
leads me to one question before we wrap up. Peter White's on in March. Should he be doing Dancing with the Stars?
No, it wouldn't be fair to the girl. Peter, I can't dance, but what Peter does would actually remove dancing talent from the girl. She would actually be less of a dancer after having spent time with Peter White. It is so amazing that music comes out of that person. And all of you know it. The first time you see it, you're like, nah, that couldn't be. I saw Peter.
And he does it in sandals.
In sandals, he does the jump, which used to be a jump. But and no one will tell him, like, Peter, you're not getting much air on that. I love him, but you've seen him move, and it's just, yeah, you look at Grace right there, 20 years old, live, athletic, she can move, Peter's not that.
Well, hey man, thanks for all the many years of sailing and being such a great friend. And on behalf of all the audience, thanks for the laughs and the continued laughs. Ladies and gentlemen, Alonzo Bodden.